1. We need to start this from the beginning. In 2005, after spending a year working in New York, I had moved back to my hometown for family reasons. Landing a job was difficult because most places were looking for a minimum of 5 years' experience, and I had not quite gained that much experience in the professional world since I graduated from college. I spent months looking for a job until I finally landed one. It was not my ideal job, but I really just took the first thing I could get. The office had not been updated since the early 80s, the pay was low. There was only 15 people working there, and my supervisor spoke just like Bill Lumbergh from Office Space. No kidding, he sounded like him so much that I thought I was on a prank show when I met with him. I figured that if anything, this job would be a stepping stone to obtain the desired experience required by the more lucrative employers. I learned the programming language they used and began taking on other responsibilities. I eventually would talk directly with the clients, figure out what they wanted, write up the quote, write the program, quality control the program, deliver the program, instruct customers on how to use it, and develop and debug it in the future as they needed. The thing was that in the job description, all these extra responsibilities were not listed, including answering the secretary's phone from time to time. However, I had to grin and bear it for that ever so precious experience. Over the years, because of all the responsibilities that were heaped upon my shoulders, no one else bothered to learn how to do what I did. Even when I approached my supervisor about someone learning it as a just in case something were to happen to me, his response was, "This is your baby. You will handle it." The years had ticked away there slowly, and my job aside, my life had progressed well. I got married and purchased my home. After my first year of marriage, my wife and I decided to start planning our family. We were elated when we found out that she was pregnant. We were on top of the world. Nothing mattered to us. We were in a state of bliss. At about 10 weeks into the pregnancy, my wife had an OB/GYN appointment to go hear the baby's heartbeat and see it on ultrasound for the first time. I was unable to take the time off that day due to threat of a write-up because one other person was on vacation. They wouldn't even let me go on an extended lunch. After much anticipation, I got home that evening, and excited to see my wife and hear the news. I walked into the house, and she had her back to me. I started walking to her and asked, "Hey babe, did they give you a printout of the ultrasound?" She turned to me with tears in her eyes, and she didn't have to say anything. I already knew what she was going to say, and I didn't want to hear it. Through tears and a shaking voice, she said, "There was no heartbeat. The baby stopped growing at 8 weeks." Part of me died that day. My wife and I held each other. It was all we could do. My wife took the rest of the week off, but I had to report back to work. I was extremely unfocused. My mind was clouded. There were so many tears in my eyes that I could not see my computer screen. Try as I might, I could not get this tragedy out of my head. How was I supposed to function that day? As I was sitting at my desk, my supervisor came to my cube with several new things for me to work on. I took this opportunity to tell him that I could not hack it the rest of the day, and just needed to take the day off with my wife. I implored him, "I really need to take the day off. My wife has lost a baby. I just can't do this today." My supervisor replied with a sigh, and in a condescending and unsympathetic voice, "Well, you've got to plan for these things. Your job here." He had more to say, but I did not hear any other words he spoke. I was enveloped with rage. I literally saw red to the point I was blinded by my rage. My hands gripped my desk white-knuckle tight to prevent them from destroying him. I said nothing back to him. At that point I knew how much I mattered to him and to the company, and how little this job mattered to me. I now had an axe to grind, and I was going to grind that motherfucker to the handle. My wife needed a series of operations to get things corrected with her lady parts. I was there for her, and my job be damned. I was then lectured by my supervisor and the owner of the company about the importance of the job, that I needed to be there working, and that another family member could have taken my wife to the surgeries. Things settled down after that. And the following year we had our first son. Clients I handled sent gift baskets, baby clothes, cards, and well wishes. It felt good that I had such a reputation with my clients. However, from the company in which I was employed, nothing. Not even a greeting card. However, they made sure to celebrate the owner's birthday that week by everyone eating cake in the break room while awkwardly looking at each other. It was about this time that I had plenty of experience that I started looking for a different job. The market was getting better at this time, and the stress was starting to give me ulcers. With some prodding from my wife, she suggested that since I'm quitting anyway and my review was coming up, that I try to press for a better raise. So I thought, sure, why not? I looked up how much I should be making for the work I was doing in the region in the US I was working. I wasn't making average. Hell, I wasn't even in the bottom 10%. I gathered the information together in preparation for my performance review. During my review, they talked about how good of a job I was doing, and how the clients were always happy to work with me and the results I produced. So, with that as my cue, I laid out the papers on the table in front of the owner, and I started with my case for a significant pay increase, to at least be in the bottom 10%. I figured that would be more than reasonable. Without even looking at the paper, he placed his hand on the paper and pushed it slowly back to me, then proceeded to tell me how the numbers were skewed because it doesn't include bonuses, benefits, and that they could easily fill my position. It was exactly what I expected him to do. Within the next few months, I had finally got into a new company. It was better pay, bonuses, benefits, and it was close to my home. Now was the time to let the axe fall. The morning came for my resignation. I called for a meeting with my supervisor and the owner. We sat in the meeting room. I laid my letter of resignation on the table and pushed it over to them, saying, "As of right now, I'm giving you 2 weeks' notice. This is my letter of resignation." The look of panic spreading over their faces was delicious. I took a mental snapshot of that moment. Owner: "Could you please give us 3 weeks? There is too much you have to hand off, and 2 weeks is not going to be enough time." Me: "No, 2 weeks. I already have a start date with the other company set. Staying here would not be worth my time." Supervisor: "But you know too much. We need more time." At this point, I saw that dish of revenge laid out in front of me. Now for the main course. Drool was in my mouth as I was about to take the most delicious bite of my revenge. Me: "Well, you need to plan for these things." I'm not sure if he got what I was referring to or not, but for the next half hour I had never heard so much begging and pleading. I did not budge from the 2 weeks. The owner went all in with, "I don't understand why you are leaving." I replied, "Because the place I'm going to is paying me $20,000 more a year, better benefits, and it's closer to my home. Also, you are working in a dead programming language. The developer has stopped supporting it in 2007. I give your company 5 years at best. Also, you people are the worst." I didn't just burn that bridge, I nuked the bitch. You see, after my resignation meeting, they assigned another person to learn everything I was working on for the next 2 weeks. I noticed that he had recently got a haircut, and had taken off on a random Thursday while I was training him. I could tell that he did not care. This couldn't have played out better. I was training someone who was about to quit, and the week following my departure, he quit. So you may be asking, wait, how did you know he quit? Well, you see, he did not give a 2-week notice, and even if he did, he could not train anyone because he was not paying attention or taking notes. So they called me. Me: "Hello." Owner: "Hey, we are in a bit of a predicament. Dan suddenly quit on us, and we don't know how to take care of these systems. Would you be able to help us as an advisor to get the information we need?" Me: "Well, the last paycheck I received from you seemed to affect my memory. I'm sorry, I cannot help you." Click. All subsequent phone calls from them were ignored. I know that I could have charged them a lot of money for the knowledge I had, but this was worth so much more than what they would give me. To paraphrase Rorschach from Watchmen, "The accumulated filth will foam up about their waists, and they will look up and shout, 'Save us!' And I will look down and whisper, 'No.'" Oh, and 4 years and 9 months later, the company was bought out and dissolved, just as I told him. 2. Well, to put into context, this happened about 10 years ago at college. I studied in a private school, and always worked through my degree in order to survive. So I had a little bit of a problem with attendance sometimes. This professor was the typical scumbag Steve, only passing those who gave him a bottle of whiskey or if you were a cute chick, and flirted with him. Let's call him SS. He liked to be too personal with students, passing the border of respect a lot of times, and for this particular time at the beginning of term, he messed with me, and I had woken up on the wrong side of the bed. That day I had to ask about something I didn't understand about client-server relationship. It was a server-interpreted languages class. Me: "Excuse me, Professor, but I don't understand this part. Can you explain again?" SS: "Next time study before you ask. My time is expensive, so I can't waste it." It struck a nerve and made me fade into the background like an episode of "Earth, swallow me whole right now, please." So, being the freaking nerd I was, did exactly what he asked, and studied, real hard, until I finished the class program in the second week of term. It was really outdated, like 10 years old, so I updated the content I acquired to the knowledge state of the art. So cue me in the next class. He mentioned something wrong, not outdated, and I asked him about it to make sure it wasn't by mistake. Anyone can make a mistake. Me: "Excuse me, Professor, but this part doesn't quite fit into what the content says. Can you clarify?" SS: "I told you already to study beforehand." Me: "That's why I'm asking, because according to Standardization Organization, what you're saying is wrong. Besides, you're outdated. This was 10 years ago. Now changed to this. I don't remember exactly." SS: "We'll see in the tests if I'm outdated." But I took all chances I could to humiliate him in front of the class. In each test I had to request a revision because he would always fail me. But the most important one was the final. And I had to go through the dean of my faculty to get my grade because no matter what I did, he would always fail me. I had to take a picture, had a camera phone, of everything I handed in. And this included him receiving it. He didn't know I was because camera phones were really rare. After the final revision by the Dean of Computer Sciences, my grade was 100. And fortunately, he had time to shut his mouth one last time. Me: "If you teach, make sure you know more than your students." And just left. He got sacked by the next term. Why? Performance review score. 3. Setting. This happened about 8 years ago when I worked for one of the biggest hotels in the US. I'm talking about 3,200 rooms, and that place is the size of a small city. My position was Supervisor of Special Operations, which means I was the guy they came to when they needed to, say, change 1,000 bed frames for more modern ones, or change 5,000 light bulbs for ones more energy efficient because we are going green, and stuff like that. Now, a hotel this big is divided into 4 buildings, each with their own managers, supervisors, housekeeping, and the like. Essentially, it was run like 4 separate hotels. The problem was that each building's managers had an exorbitant amount of power, and they ended up stepping on each other's toes day in and day out. Because of my position, I didn't work directly for any of them but for the Director of Housekeeping, or DH, because what I did had mostly to do with rooms. So whenever one of them tried to make me take special care of them and their buildings, I could easily refuse, but most of the time I did whatever they needed to get done, if I had time, and because they were mostly nice people and good managers. Enter Dushkanu. Dushkanu was the worst manager I have ever encountered in my career. He would go into the checkout rooms and steal tips from the housekeepers, take things left behind by guests instead of reporting them to Lost and Found, and talk to people like they owed him something, like his word was law. This story. One day we get a VIP guest, one of the owners of the company that owned the hotel. So DH sends me to check the room he's to check into the next day, so I did. I checked all the furniture, bed frame, mattress, lamps, light bulbs, AC unit, everything I could think of, and when I'm done I give the nod to go. Fast forward a week. The day after VIP checked out, I get called into DH's office, and the conversation goes like this. DH: So, VIP had a complaint about his room. Me: Did I miss something? DH: Not really, it was housekeeping who did. He noticed that one of his pillows was stained. The pillows are in a protective cover inside a pillowcase, so he had to have taken it out to both notice it was stained and requested another one, which was also stained. Me: And you want me to do something about it? DH: I want you to check all the pillows during renovations. Take all the stained ones out of the rooms and send them to laundry, and then place them back in the rooms. Me: It's going to take a couple of days and some severe overtime, but okay. The hotel was scheduled for renovations about 3 weeks from the date of the VIP pillow incident, where the hotel was supposed to shut down for 2 weeks, and outside contractors would come in and do most of the work. During this time I was supposed to just stand by and help out the contractors with whatever they needed. But because of the pillow incident, I now had something to do. So I had my instructions from DH, and the date rolls by and me and my team get to work. About halfway through the first building, I get a call on the radio from Dushkanu, asking where I was. DH had a family emergency and was out of town, leaving Dushkanu in charge of overseeing operations until he got back. I respond with my location and get back to work. About 10 minutes later, Dushkanu enters the room I'm currently working in, and the conversation goes like this. Dushkanu: You were going to throw away all the stained pillows. Me: Now why would I do that when I have clear instructions from DH? Dushkanu: DH isn't here, and I'm telling you to throw away all the stained pillows. As soon as he finished that sentence, he turned around and started walking away when I said, But, and he loses it and goes, You are nothing more than a glorified janitor. You will do as you're told. Throw away all the stained pillows and leave the thinking to the people with college degrees. To which I said nothing but, Okay. After he left, I call my team on a different radio frequency and let them know the new plan, and get a lot of, seriously, and what the fucks. So I tell them, that's what the boss man wants, and that's exactly what the boss man will get. Anyways, we get back to work pulling stained pillows from rooms, remember, 3,200 of them, so it takes us about 3 days. During this time, we didn't just dump the pillows as we went. We stashed them in a storage room by the dumpster. Turns out most of the pillows were stained, so we're talking about 15,000. So after we are done, I email Dushkanu and say, all the stained pillows have been pulled and are on standby. Again, should I just be taking them to laundry like DH originally told me to do, or should I just proceed to dump them? To which he replied, yeah, whatever, just throw them away already like I told you to. So my team and I proceed to ask around the staff and gave a bunch of them away before filling our dumpsters with nothing but pillows. So days go by, and I am just helping out the contractors when I get an email from Dushkanu saying, Why aren't there pillows in the rooms yet? It was your responsibility. To which I replied, we don't have enough pillows for all the rooms, even with the stash. The stash was a storage room we kept full of new pillows whenever they broke, were bled on, or had too many people requesting extra pillows at the same time. But it was only like 500, give or take. We don't even have enough for even one building. He replied, What do you mean we don't have enough? How many pillows did you throw away? My response, you told me to throw away all the stained ones, so I did. About 15,000. To which he replied, 15,000? How could you be such an imbecile? Now what are we supposed to do? We can't delay the reopening. My response, I'm just a glorified janitor and can only follow orders. I'll leave the thinking to the people with college degrees. He then proceeds to call DH on his personal phone, who was out of town attending his father's funeral, and belittle me, saying how incompetent I was, and how I threw away all the pillows I was supposed to have washed, and put back in the rooms. So I get a text from DH that just said, "DH told me what you did. We'll talk when I get back in 2 days." During those 2 days, I compiled a folder with the email thread with the pillow conversation, and since I don't have access to the security mainframe, went to my buddy who is the security manager and checked the cameras, and I found the footage of him telling me that I'm a glorified janitor and to leave the thinking to college graduates. There are no cameras in the rooms, but the hallway camera caught the audio. 2 days went by, and as soon as I came in the next morning and pick up my radio, I get a call from DH to meet him in his office. So I head there with my folder and my footage in hand. When I walked in, he was sitting in his desk, with Dushkanu standing next to him, and the conversation went like this. DH, take a seat. So I take a seat. DH, would you care to explain the situation you have put us in? Me, no problem. I pulled out my folder, opened it, put it on his desk, and pushed it towards him. He spends a couple of minutes reading it, including the transcription from the security footage. And when I can tell he's done reading, I said, "They wouldn't let me take a copy of the security footage as policy, but you can talk to Mr. Gardy and he can show it to you." He then looks at Dushkanu with raised eyebrows, looks back at me and says, "Would you excuse us for a moment?" I just nod, get up, and walk out. About 30 minutes later, out comes Dushkanu, with the biggest puppy who peed on the carpet and got hit with a rolled-up newspaper face I've ever seen. DH signals me to come in again and says, "Mr. Dushkanu has decided to take some personal time indefinitely. Carry on with your day." And that's the story of how a manager tried to get me fired because of his stupidity, and it didn't work. 4. This story is so malicious I got the entire staff on board to do this with me. And in doing so, took only 4 days to reverse this policy. I'm getting ahead of myself though. First, you need a little information about my clinic. It's really big. The biggest in the region for the parent company that operates a series of clinics. The building is 3 stories tall, and built out of a converted shipping warehouse from a company that went out of business in the 60s. 1 floor is a counseling center. 1 floor is a medical clinic, and 1 floor is a crisis center where suicidal people, drug abusers, etc. are brought to try and get them stabilized. All 3 are operated by the same parent company, and as such we all work closely together with clients. Honestly, it's controlled chaos most days, but we all work cooperatively to ensure clients are seen and taken care of each day in as close to a timely manner as possible. While you can't bounce from therapist to therapist, anybody can take a first-time appointment. Each of our schedules are built out so that we each take several first-time appointments per day, but sometimes multiple people show up at the same time for that appointment, double booking, or someone makes a mistake and schedules a regular counseling session over the top of a first-time appointment. In case you don't know, first-time appointments are almost always strictly information gathering and diagnosing per insurance requirements. No therapeutic relationship is formed during these times. Cue the story. Last Monday, the VP for our region stopped by first thing in the morning and called an all-hands meeting. VP: "Things are not as organized around here as they need to be. You guys constantly are pulling clients from one person's schedule to another, and have weekly reports that make no sense because of it." Office Manager: "Well, yeah, it's hectic around here and the calmest of days. We have nearly 3 times the volume of the next largest center in the area. We all just help out where we can." Clinic Director: "FTAs, first-time appointments, are the easiest way to help even out the caseload. When clients no-show or a weird gap winds up in someone's schedule, they'll take an FTA off of someone who is slammed or hasn't had lunch that day." VP: "This is unacceptable. We need more accurate reports, and this behavior messes up reporting. It works at other clinics, it should work here." Office Manager: "Yes, it may, but as I already said, we have such a high client volume, restricting schedules in this way will reduce our productivity significantly. And I guarantee there will be client complaints due to longer wait times." VP: "If you stick to the schedule, it will work out." A valiant amount of protesting followed by nearly all staff members. clinic director and office manager. But the battle was soon lost. The VP left with a door slam that said, "Screw you, I'm in charge." And we spent 5 or so minutes trying to work out a solution. Finally, when it seemed all hope was lost, I spoke up. Me: "Why don't we just follow her rule maliciously?" Clinic director: "What do you mean?" Me: "She said follow the schedule strictly. Let's do that. We all know it won't work. I've been here a month and I can see that as plain as day. So let's follow the rules so hard they come back to bite her in the ass." Office manager: "I'll document everything to a T. I'll make sure we're covered, because this will blow up in our faces otherwise." Clinic director: "You seriously want to do this? It's going to be a very hard week." Office manager: "She's put us in a box. I like this idea." Clinic director: "All right, everyone in?" All of us, of course, grimly nodded yes. Some days you can have as many as 15 appointments scheduled on your calendar, with many being first-time appointments we pass around as needed. Those people would have to stay until everything was completed, or the clients got pissed off and went home. Each day was worse than the last. Monday was tough, but most Mondays have relatively high cancellation and no-show rates. It's Monday, right? Everyone hates Mondays. Tuesday was a nightmare. The complaints started rolling in slowly but surely as 2 people had 2+ hour wait times. I was there until 6 p.m. One of the other therapists, as well as the front office staff, was there until 8 p.m. No one can leave until the lobby is cleared. Wednesday was hell. People who had left, no-showed on Monday and Tuesday, had rescheduled for Wednesday. Complaints were piling up, and our complaint box had to be emptied midday to allow the stuffing of new complaints. Thursday was worse than the apocalypse. 3+ hour wait times, as no one had been helping each other out all week, and we were all backed up as a result. Regular appointments take precedence over first-time appointments, so newcomers kept getting pushed farther and farther back. Security had to be called because an actual fistfight broke out between 2 people who had been waiting for nearly 3 hours due to them arguing over who would get the first appointment. During those 4 days, we were only able to see around 60% of the scheduled appointments who checked in. That is unheard of, as normal numbers are closer to 95% kept and seen ratio. We also had an explosion in complaints, and while I don't have any numbers of how many we receive on average, this was way more than average. Office manager had been scanning and forwarding the complaints as well as our daily number to the VP, and on Friday, VP came back to our office. She didn't call an all-hands meeting this time. VP only met with clinic director and office manager. But there was some shouting that could be heard from the conference room. VP was pissed. But office manager had documentation to prove this was VP's fault. And after 15 minutes or so, VP left with a door slam that said she was very pissed at us. Office manager called us all into the conference room. Clinic director: "The VP has reversed her policy. We'll go back to doing things the way we were before." Me: "I assume she didn't apologize for causing us all that grief this week?" Office manager: "Oh, she didn't, but I'm authorizing overtime for everyone who stayed late. Even the salaried people. You guys deserve it." There were a few more minutes of discussion, but generally we were all happy for a few hours of extra cash in our paychecks. Aside from the front desk staff, God bless them, we all had extra downtime during the day because instead of helping co-workers out, we watched YouTube videos and goofed off. After all, what else could we do? Those clients weren't on our calendars for that time. 5. Some backstory. I am the youngest of 3 sisters, my poor dad. My older sisters are a year apart. I am 7 years younger. Since my older sisters were close, I was a lonely kid. It didn't help my sisters hated me. They started a competition to be the golden child, and I was dragged into it. My oldest sister was the academic genius. She was the one who'd make it. My second sister was the popular, beautiful, social one. She'd be the first to love and marry, and both loved rubbing it in. Although I was so much younger, they kept telling me I wasn't as smart, beautiful, talented, successful, popular as them. And I would never be good at anything. I'd just live in my parents' home forever and be fat and ugly and useless. The oldest even told me to go drown. It's far from the worst I've read on this sub, but it really screwed me up for a long time. They were at least partially right. I'm not the smartest, or the most social. I was fat. But I am also very stubborn and patient. So I made a plan. At the age of 12, I promised myself I'd be better than them, and my life would be one big fuck you to those bitches. So I went to work. First I searched for a talent. I noticed I was pretty good at music, so I started practicing until I reached a level high enough to start a professional education. Hours, days, weeks, months, years. I joined orchestras, learned different instruments, and eventually started a major in music psychology. At the same time, I played the perfect daughter for my parents. I brought home flowers for the table, cleaned and helped around the house, was obedient, always friendly and kind, and got good grades. Like I said, I'm not smart, but I studied my ass off. I almost purred the first time my mom told my sisters to be more like me. Next was popular and social. Thank God for the orchestras. I had an instant group of friends and we had a great time. My sisters tried boycotting this by claiming I was too young to go out alone. 16 then. But since it was a rehearsal and drinks in town once a week, my parents allowed it. I became one of the most motivated and well-known musicians there, and a pretty good card player too. I was popular enough to start some true rumors about my sisters, and undermining their social life. They had lied a lot to be more liked. I just corrected those lies. They deserved it. Beautiful was harder. I started exercising and dieting, and that was really difficult for me, emotional eater. But every time I wanted chocolate or fries, I remembered my sisters telling me that I was a useless, fat, ugly girl, and I ate a carrot instead. I went to a doctor and he found out I had severe allergies, explaining my bad skin. So with some medication, that was under control. I cut off my never-cut hair in a short style, learned how to use natural makeup and how to dress. At this point, I was good enough at music to get paid jobs, so I could afford it. Suddenly, I got compliments. Also, suddenly, my sisters bought me sweets for no reason, and offered me their hand-me-downs. When I met a guy who I really had a connection with, my family obviously wanted to meet him. My parents loved him. My sisters obviously didn't. They tried to break us up by telling my parents that he was a bad influence, and the oldest actually tried to forbid me to see him. I was 20 years old. I was livid. But luckily my parents are nice people and they told my sisters to back off. It took me 15 years to really complete my revenge. Now I'm exactly where I want to be. I graduated and have a successful practice as a musical therapist. I'm happily married. I have 2 wonderful children, and I still look damn good despite some stretch marks and scars. I live in a beautiful home, husband has a very good paycheck, and I'm genuinely happy. My bitch sisters never really let go of their egos and attitudes, resulting in one living at home, and one getting fired constantly for being too difficult to work with. No boyfriends, few friends, and both are struggling with their weight. And at every family function I smile when my parents tell them to be more like me. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, number 5. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Well, it is a weekend, and I like to keep the outro short on the weekend. I just want to thank all you guys for the views and feedback you left me on episode 300 of the True Scary Stories video. It means a lot to me. The video's done quite well so far. I'll likely be doing another Q&A for the Paranormal 100th. That'll be a couple of months' time, so if you have questions for that, by all means, get them in whenever you'd like. We've got 2 months to do it. I'll gather as many as I can over the 2 months, and hopefully we get another nice long Q&A. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.